I'm Ed Parcaut, the host of Helping the Brave, and today we have Donald Dunn. Let's bring him in from the green room. How you doing, Donald?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Thanks for coming on the Helping the Brave.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man.
This is what I like doing. Actually, my best time is having conversations with people. Uh, I do it a lot. I'm in the mortgage industry, so I talk to clients all the time, but I have more fun on my podcast than any other time. So,
Yeah, I can imagine. I,
yeah.
I enjoy it as well.
Do you have your own podcast?
I do. It's called Spirits and Stories with Donald Dunn. Similar to what you do. I just have conversation with people I find with interesting stories.
See, I just have conversations.
Well,
Hopefully, they're interesting stories.
I've
Yeah.
had a few of those too.
No, actually, on Helping the Brave, there's only been one, I think twice maybe in the 3 years I was doing it. I have had a co-host forever, multiple co-hosts in the beginning, then we went down to two, and I have just found recently it's just so much easier to be the host, and then that way you can control the story the way you want it to go.
Yep.
Even though I do two other types of stuff, radio and another podcast with other hosts, but they just seem to have it down. If you understand how to flow the conversation, it's a great conversation, right?
Yeah, I would agree. And so I had a co-host as well, and he dropped off on the end of season one. And I tried to do that solo without guests, and man, I just couldn't do it.
Well, I
So
don't do a solo without guests.
yeah, I tried it. I couldn't do it. So
Well, no, I have to have a guest, but I
yeah,
don't need a co-host,
right. No,
right?
I'm tracking.
Yeah.
I'm tracking.
Just want to make sure we're on the same page because
Yep.
I do a morning show for real estate and finance. Really, it's our local community show. It's on, it's live, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere, Instagram, and we've been doing it for a while now. It's my co-host from the radio show, and him and I have a great, just back and forth. It's funny. It's everything. He's gone a bunch, and it's just me. And I'm all about, okay, I can have this done in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. All right, so that's enough about me and my story. All right, I'm a Navy person. You were you in the Army?
Yep. Yes, sir. It's 20 years. Came
Wow.
in '94, retired in 2014.
What did you do in the Army? By the way, my son's in the Army. He was his first duty station. He was airborne ranger medic. I take it back. He was airborne, not ranger. Threw too many extra thing in there, and he was stationed at Washington, up in Alaska.
Okay.
For this first duty station, and then he's in Washington State.
Yeah. I was a diesel mechanic. I did first was Korea. I did a year there, and then I went to the armpit of the Army, Fort Bliss, and man, I was to the point where I was ready to get out there. The only thing that kept me in was it was easier to re-enlist and get a different duty station than to do another year waiting to ETS from there. So, and that was the turning point of my career, because once I did that, I went to Germany and was in a mechanized infantry, and I actually got to see what real leadership was all about. By the time I got done with the 3 years there, I volunteered to go to the 160th. So I did 10 years in the special ops community, and then I left there, went to Qatar, and came back to Fort Stewart and retired from Stewart.
So you're in 20 years.
Yep.
Looking back over that time period, man, you got through that quick. My last guest I had on was 44 year in the British Army. That took a while to get through.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I know who your guest was.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'm
Yep.
sure the
Yep.
Lord. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Really nice guy. So what
Yeah.
happened is so up until recently, I didn't get guests from Podmatch for Helping the Brave. It was always people we were connected to through somebody, and that we knew that was a veteran who'd come on. And now I ran out of everybody. So
Yeah.
that's why I reached out there to get some more people and different takes from all over. And I had another gentleman from London a while back. I can't think of his name. He's going to kill me. And he had been undercover in the prisons in the Taliban as part of the Taliban.
No kidding.
Yeah, I can get he amazing freaking story. He couldn't talk about it for 10 years, and then finally talked about it. Yeah, it was
Wow.
such a great story that his country thought he was a traitor.
No kidding. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would love to.
I'll get you his information. Yeah, it's killing me. I can't think of his name. I guess getting old's really bad.
I agree, man. I have that same issue.
Yeah, occasionally. All right, so after 20 years, you look back, you were a diesel mechanic, then you did other stuff. What was your best time in that 20 year?
The 10 years I spent in the special ops community, the guys in that unit, it's just a different breed of people. It's more what we kind of call the big boy program, and because it's a volunteer um, unit,
Mhm.
the people want to be there. So no matter what you're doing, you roll up your sleeves, you get the job done, and your rank and everything doesn't matter. Everybody's first name basis. So there was a lot of camaraderie in that unit. Um, I also had some ups and downs with anything. 10 years. So 2000, a year after I get there, is when 9/11 happens,
Right.
and from that point forward, man, the train just never stopped. I ended up doing 68 months total between Iraq, Afghanistan, Bosnia, and man, by the time it was over with, I was burned out. But as far as times that I look back, I probably would have never made it 20 years had I not gone to that unit.
Wow. What was I just found his name, Anthony Malone.
Okay,
I think it's Anthony. Huh?
I'll
He's
reach out to him.
if you need a connection, I can connect you.
Okay.
But yeah, his story is freaking amazing. Book, everything. It's just shocking. When I first had him, he was introduced to me by somebody I knew, and I had an interview, and the whole time, all I said was, "Wow."
Yeah, it sounds like it, man.
Yeah, I mean, and then I had him on Helping the Brave because I had him on something else first, and I had at that time 3 co-hosts, and they all are, yeah, 3, but only 2 on that episode, and they're all like this. By the way, I had my mouth open if you're listening to this and not watching it. And that's what's not, our military service kind of teaches us certain things. What I wanted to kind of go back to is you're talking about when you went to the new place and that you found leadership.
Mhm.
What was the difference between that leadership and where you were before?
Okay. The best example I can give you is just two situations, right? So while I was at Fort Bliss, I went on emergency leave for my wife's aunt. She passed away. We went to Nebraska. My wife was 9 months pregnant, and the night before the funeral, she went into labor. When my son was born, he had the cord wrapped around his neck, so he had some jaundice. And the doctors there at the Air Force Base said that my wife and the kids were going to have to be in the hospital for at least 3 more days. So I called my first aunt, said, "Hey, I'm supposed to be back in 3 days, but my wife's not going to get out of the hospital for 3 days. I need to extend my leave." I had the leave days. It wasn't a matter of not having the leave days. My first aunt tells my section sergeant, tell him he can make it back in time, that he can leave his wife there. There's no way I'm leaving my wife in the hospital with my newborn son. On top of that, being an E3 in the Army, money wise, I'm not going to have the money to drive all the way back to pick her up later, you know? So I just told him, I said, look, you can go ahead and call the MPs now because I won't be back in 3 days. And the company commander ended up extending my leave. So that is just kind of the way that whole unit worked. They were a patriot unit. If you were not patriot, then you really wasn't anything. The maintenance guys were guys that drove the lawnmowers and did the details and stuff like that. And so I kind of had a negative attitude towards the military at that point. Well, I get to Germany, and Fort Bliss gives me another awesome present. And when I reenlisted, they never turned in the reenlistment paperwork, or it got lost, one or the other. So by the time I got to Germany, the Army had thought he's not in the Army no more. So they quit paying me. Well, once I got there and the situation had happened, I had a chain of command that help me write
You
letters.
had orders, right?
Yep, I had orders.
Okay, just
It
checking.
Yeah, they got it fixed. It took about 2 months, to get everything caught back up and fixed, but I had a chain of command that wrote letters on my behalf to my bills. They took up donations to help me get food. I mean, if it wasn't for them, life would have been even harder. Being in a new country, you're not living on the base. The only housing they had available was off base. So not it would have never happened at Fort Bliss like that, you know. And nobody asked them to do it. They did it just because.
They wanted to.
Yeah.
Fort Bliss, Oklahoma,
Texas.
Texas.
Yep.
Where in Texas?
El Paso. It's right
Okay.
there on the border. Yep.
Yeah, because I was stationed at San Antonio for my
Okay.
AIT for when I was in, and then we had to go to different bases around their army bases, of course, for our training for a week or so in what our MLS, which was physical therapy. And some of us went to Fort Bliss, somebody went to other places. I went up north, and it was in a totally different state. So as I was trying to remember where Fort Bliss was. Yeah, well, Texas is a unique place.
It is.
Hot and humid.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing too that made it even worse, being um a E3,
E3.
yeah, with a youngin, and my wife couldn't even get a job because she didn't speak Spanish. I mean, we're talking like she couldn't even work at McDonald's. And so money was always tight. It's not like E3s make a whole lot of money.
No, they don't.
But yeah, so I mean, it was just part of the ups and downs of the military as you find out down the road.
Yeah. I'm amazed today how fast they make rank.
Yeah, all
My
that changed.
son's at E5
Yeah.
after 4 years. I couldn't even
Yep.
get to E5 till I was in 5 years or more.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I completely. Once 9/11 kicked off, man, yeah, that rank was fast tracked. I've seen sergeant majors at 16, 17, 18 years. When I first came in, sergeant majors were 25, 24. You know, you never seen somebody make sergeant major E9 before 20 years. It
Yeah,
happens
I
a lot.
mean, yeah. So when I was in, I was lucky to get E4 because you had to get out. And in
Yep.
the Navy, nobody left. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. When I first came in 94, they did have a lot of drawdowns and everything too.
Mhm.
There was a lot of promotion freezes that held up a lot of people as well.
I mean, recently my son, he stayed as an E4 to get his reenlistment bonus and then got his E5. It was like smart kid,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
thought it, yeah, because his reenlistment bonus for E5 was 10 grand, for E4 was 40.
Wow. Yeah.
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 He's a medic, right? And he was airborne, but he gave up the airborne part just because he had to treat really hard. At his last command, he's like, dude, I'm tired. I'm done with this. I'm like, you're 22. You should, stop now before you get hurt. Because I worked in physical therapy as a corpsman, and I dealt with a lot of those types of injuries where the
Yep.
cord would break, split the bicep or this or that.
Yep. And even if nothing like that happens, still by the end of your career, your knees and back and everything else is just shot.
Yeah, that's why I document everything.
Yep. I'm fighting that now with the VA.
Yeah, well, there's people out there who can help, so there's help out there. It's not like it used to be, you know what I mean? It's so much easier than it used to be, but document everything, even if you don't document it with the military people, still have it documented somewhere.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that the soldiers go through, man, is your chain of command looks down on you for going to sick call.
Yep.
But if you don't, then when you get out, you get screwed.
Right.
So
yeah, they look down at you for saying certain things, because I remember my some, I'm not gonna say who it is, but they were like, if I go for this, I'll get kicked out. Right. And it's like,
yep.
okay, well, when you're on leave, let's take you to Kaiser.
Yeah.
So do what you got to do. All right. So enough about our little long stories about what, so looking back, would you have done it? I don't know if I asked you this, would you do anything differently?
No. And I'm going to tell you why. Uh, I'm a firm believer now. Probably not during the military or shortly after, but I'm a firm believer that at some point you get put on the path that you're meant to be on, and I'm there now. The nonprofit that I'm working with and everything that we're doing on the back end, none of that probably would have happened if I changed anything. Had I not gone in the military, I know I wouldn't be helping the best community out there, which is the veteran community.
Mhm.
And had I not gone to combat, maybe I wouldn't have gotten PTSD, which wouldn't have led me to where I'm at today. So, no, I wouldn't change anything because the end part, when you finally get put on your path, that's when you find true inner peace. And I'm there now.
So I take it when you got out, you lost your purpose. You had some other issues when you got out.
Yeah. When I by the time I had gotten out, I was already, man, I was to the point where I didn't want to live. Me and my family were fighting all the time. I didn't like work. I didn't like home. I didn't want to deploy. I just was to the point where I was just done. Um, and at that point, that's when depression starts sitting in, and you start believing the things that you're telling yourself that you're worthless, you're garbage, you'd be better off without you here and everything else. And so when I got out, man, I was literally looking at insurance policies that I could leave my wife and I take myself out. And I realize now that it wasn't that I wanted to die, it was that I was keeping myself from living, you know? And so I don't think I was necessarily suicidal as much as I was just so miserable that I was making it hard for everybody else. And I never talked with my wife about it. That's the other thing that could have changed, I think, with some families. A lot of the military guys, while they're deployed and whatever, when they come home, they don't want to talk to their families about the things they seen, the things they did. They don't want them to worry while they're over there if they know the truth about what we're doing. All those types of scenarios where you tell yourself, your family's better off to not know. But the problem is when you do have a problem, like in my situation, my family didn't understand what I was going through because I never brought them into that part of my life. So my wife got so numbed to deployments. My first deployment, she dropped me off and was in tears. My last deployment, she rolled over, gave me a kiss, and said, "See you in a year." And it's just because I never talked about the things that was going on over there. She knew because I was having bad dreams and stuff like that. But when she would ask me what the dreams are about, I would tell her I don't remember. And things like that to just keep her out of it. The problem with that was as I was being a dick and making life harder on everybody else and feeling like the problem was everybody else, she didn't understand what I was going through. I didn't understand what I was going through. So at the end of the day, that's one thing that I do kind of recommend to people is if you're having problems or your significant other sees that you're having problems, that's the time that you need to open up and start talking about it so that it doesn't destroy the families because it took almost the separation of my family for me to get right. And it took a point where me and my son was about to get into a fight. It was about to get physical. I ended up throwing him out of my house the day after a hurricane. And it was the worst and best day of my life because that's after that I realized there's something wrong with me. Uh, my anger was out of control. My hatred was out of control. So I didn't go to the VA at that point. I went to a civilian therapist that a fellow soldier of mine recommended, and that's where I started getting help.
So looking back, all right, so that's a major problem for most vets. One, we don't ask for help.
Yeah.
We think it's a weakness. And I always tell people, but you always call for air support, don't you?
That is true.
Right? So that's the
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it isn't even so much as just the asking for help. Um,
They don't
when
want to
you,
look weak.
yeah, they don't want to look weak, and
Yeah.
they blame everybody else. I'm not fucked up. He's messed up. And you can only say that so long often before you realize the only thing that is the same in every situation is you. It can't be everybody else, and you being the only person left on the planet that's not messed up. And as long as you don't accept that, you're not going to ask for help. You're going to keep blaming it.
Well, I'm glad you got help because I know a lot of guys who wait forever, and they've ruined every relationship and finally then gets the help. Or I interviewed a guy who is in the prison system here in California. He was a Marine for 10 years, got out and shot somebody. It's a long story. And he was in prison for 23 years. So he wrote a program to help vets to never get back incarcerated again once you get out. Because he said the problem is with PTSD, you either kill yourself or you go to prison,
Yep.
because prison is like killing yourself. And so he created a program. It got funded while he was in the prison, and then now he's out and running it.
That
So
is
it's yeah. So if you need his information, let me know. Um,
absolutely.
so I run my local Rotary. I'm in Modesto, California. I'm the president of my Rotary this year, and I've had a huge push to do more for veterans in our community. I'm putting on you. I don't know if you had him on your show. He's all over the place. David Albin. Have you heard of him?
I have not.
Okay, he worked for Tony Robbins for 15 years as the firewalk. He ran his firewalks for him,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah. Yep. I know who you're talking about now. Yep.
okay. So we were on a conversation once, and he said he wanted to do them for veterans. I said I do too. So we're doing the first one for veterans, April 12th and 13th here at Modesto. So if you're around, come on by.
That is awesome. Yeah. When you were saying Tony Robbins, I couldn't place that. And then David Albin. Yeah. He was on
Yeah.
my show. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he talked. Yeah. So yeah, and if you know him, his goal was 100 podcasts, and he did 150 or 160, something like that, some ridiculous number that year.
Yeah.
I mean, I got him beat because just with my radio show extra, we do it 5 days a week times 52. I'm already, I don't,
Yeah.
where's my calculator? And that's not even counting all the other ones. But yeah, so where are you out of?
I am out of Rolla, Missouri, man.
Okay.
Yep. I actually used to live not too far from where you're at when I was a kid back in '87. Mark McGuire was a rookie. I was in Valley Springs there by
Okay.
Lodi.
I know exactly where Valley Springs is.
Yep.
Actually, way up a little bit more
Yep.
than right by the Lodi. Yeah. There's not much going on in Valley Springs,
There is not.
even to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's yeah. So why where Modesto is. I was in at Camp Pendleton. I got stationed at Camp Pendleton. So I was in Turlock as a kid, joined the Navy to see the world, got stationed at Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
The whole
Yep.
time I was stationed at Camp Pendleton. Went away, came back, and got stationed at Camp Pendleton.
It's
Which
like
for
that,
somebody to be in Southern California in San Diego County as a kid, it was the best place to be at. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would agree, man. I liked California as a kid, man. I played
I
football.
like it. I like it today. I hate the politics, but I like the weather.
Yeah. Northern California especially. I liked because I mean I played football against Modesto. I played with this San Andreas, Calaveras Raiders, whatever you want to call them, and man, it brings back some memories.
Yeah, well, jump on a plane. Got a week and a half before we do it. No, we're trying to do more, something totally different that's never been done, and this is the first time. And then the plan is to have it done all over the country. His big
Yeah,
thing was to have it done here again. I'm like, I don't know about that. We're going to have it done here again, but I would like to have them done in like San Diego, Texas. You know what I mean? All over, so you don't have to travel to do it. You know?
yep, and you'll reach more people that way too.
Yeah, because you have it in bigger places. Here we can go up to we'll reach down to Bakersfield, up to Sacramento, over to the Bay, but we can only do 225 a day. It's just the locations that's set up that way. The first one we're doing, we have a beautiful barn, so we can take video and all the different stuff, so we can do all the promotional stuff for later.
Yeah,
But the most important thing is to help my goal is I just want to help one vet. That's all I care about. My goal this year. So I did challenge 22 through my Rotary, which is, 22 people commit suicide a day. It's actually more than that, but we won't get into all that. But it was to reach out to 22 vets a week to see how they're doing. And if you don't know 22 vets, reach out to 22 people a week to see how they're doing, because not only vets, but there are so many other people committing suicide at a higher rate because of what we've been through and where we are.
That's it's funny that you said that, because when I had that same British Army man on my show, he said something at the end of it that, I don't know, it was just like an aha moment, man. He said, yeah, maybe sometime you can come on my podcast. And I said, oh yeah. I said, you got a podcast? He said, yeah, it's a mental health podcast. It's a little bit different than yours. I said, mental health, huh? He goes, yeah, we just got too many soldiers killing themselves. And it never dawned on me, man, that this wasn't an American problem. This was just a human problem. It wasn't just that American soldiers are the only ones with PTSD. There's our allies out there, the British guys, the people we fought against. It's a human nature to respond to trauma this way. And man, it really opened up my eyes after he said that. And you're right. There's a lot of people out there. Maybe the triggers are a little bit different and the scenarios are a little bit different, but the symptoms always end up with depression and potentially death. So,
and I think one of the problems these days that we have, first of all, we haven't tracked this, because when I put my first presentation together for Rotary, my first meeting, I researched everything and found out, hey, we've lost more veterans since 9/11 than we did in the last 3 wars put together.
Yep.
And if you keep looking at it, that's just horrible. But we also, we have no time to heal on the way home.
No.
Back in the 50s and the 40s and 50s, it took you weeks to get home. You're on a ship for 2 weeks to a month. You dealt with this stuff with your buddies on a ship. Now you're like, okay, I just shot somebody tonight. I'm laying in bed with my wife the next day. Potentially, not always that way, but yeah.
And the other part of that too is how, there hasn't been any other war where you were gone for a year, you came back for 9 months, and you were training to go back again. And the cycle just kept going. Like I said, I got 68 months, and that's not uncommon. It's not like I did anything spectacular that other people didn't. There's people out there with more time than me on ground in deployments. And when you start deploying people and putting them in that environment over and over, your brain is going to reprogram to be like that. Unlike Vietnam, where they did 1 or 2 years and they were back home and that was it, they were done. Same with World War I too. And I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just saying
that's how the war was, though.
That's how the war was.
Yeah.
And if you keep putting people back in that environment over and over, it's going to tear them down. There's no way around it.
Yeah, my dad was stationed. He was in the Air Force, and he worked on the planes, and he dealt with Agent Orange, right? So he died from hairy cell leukemia when I was 12. My uncle's fine, but Agent Orange either killed you or you had no problem with it.
Yep.
And he worked straight 10 months so he could get out of there. It was all about time working, the time. And when he was in Vietnam, and so instead of being there a year, he was there 10 months because he worked every day constantly. He didn't take any time off.
Yeah. Man, Agent Orange, man, I had a uncle that died from it as well.
The worst part of that is they denied it for so long. You know what I mean? And when we were a kid, we could have gotten something. I was dirt road poor when I was a kid after my dad died. That's the only way to put it. And I try to explain to people, because everybody's like, oh, you came. No, I've never come from anything. You have to make it your way in this world. And I got lucky. I used the service for what it should be used for, is to learn, go to school, get your degrees if that's what you want to do, and move on. That's what I did. But a lot of guys didn't do that.
Yeah. You're right. They came in with nothing and they left with less.
Right. God, ain't that a fact? All right. So what do you do for vets now? Because you talked about a nonprofit. We've been talking 30 minutes about you and myself. What you were talking about, a nonprofit you're working with, and then I also saw some stuff about media. So talk about that now.
Yep. So that is the nonprofit that we're building. It's called Heroes Voice Media Foundation. It came, to be honest, from my podcast. It started with me podcasting and discovering that I was starting to open up. I had a little bit of therapy from having guests on that were veterans, and I'd find myself just chatting about stuff that I never talked to my family or anybody else about, and it felt good. I wanted more of it. Um, so I started having guests on that were veterans that were in the music business, and I'm sure you know as well as I do how hard it is to get ratings and get people to watch you and so forth. And for me, it didn't matter because it was therapy. I had a full-time job. But some of these other veterans did not. They had put their dreams on hold, served our country, and now we're trying to go back and pick up where they left those dreams off at. So I wanted to come up with a way to help the veterans not have to compete with these algorithms like Spotify and everything else. So I what I did is I started a radio station, um, playing nothing but veterans music. I went and paid for the licensing through ASCAP and BMI, and we're up to now 4 channels. We have a country station called Simplify Country. We have a rock station called Ranger Rockwave, and then we got a vet mix station that's just a mix of all sorts of different genres. Um, that led into a podcasting program that has a Roku channel, and then I just now started a authors program called Words from Warriors, and it's helping veterans get published. The idea behind it isn't that I think that media itself is therapy. The idea is to keep you talking and keep you expressing yourself until you find your form of therapy that works. During my time podcasting, I found a great program called the Warriors Way Mindset. It's kind of a group therapy program. It's not a nonprofit; they're a for-profit company, but it did amazing things for me. It helped me with my temper. It helped me with a lot of different problems. It showed me new problems that I hadn't even seen yet. And the big part about that is I felt comfortable in the scenario. So that worked for me that I would have never found had I not been podcasting. Had I just gave up and said, screw this, nobody's watching the show, I'm done. I would have never found that guest. I would have never found that kind of help. And that's what I wanted other people to do. So we started these programs to help people celebrate their wins. They put their dreams on hold. They can now go back and with a little bit of help, see some success. I work with a 501c company called Operation Encore. They've been a big partner with us from the beginning, and we've been talking to them and trying to get some sponsors to create what we call the VMAs, the Veteran Music Awards. And the idea is to have it in Nashville, have it on TV, have bigger name stars that served in the military, like your George Straits and people like that, and have them host it and give these independent guys a night. 10 bands come in, they get to tell their story, they get to play some music, they get their foot on the red carpet, and they get the same treatment. And who knows, maybe they'll never be Garth Brooks, but they will be for that day. And I kind of got that idea from a program called, it was a Miss American Veteran pageant. And I love that because it's not about the necessarily the beauty pageant. If you go to their website's amazing unless they've changed it. But the girls are all in these gowns dressed for this pageant, but they're covered in dirt and mud and everything else. And all of them are veterans, every single one of them. And it's a pageant, and unlike the Miss America pageant, they're all there for the same um, nonprofit. They're all there competing for the crown, but the money and the proceeds that it raises goes to helping homeless veteran females that have children, because most shelters will take the female, but they won't take the child.
Hmm.
So that's what they do. They have it every year. You have to, just like any other pageant, you have to win your state to get represented by your state and to make it to the Miss America Veteran pageant. And it does a lot of good stuff. And I want this to do the same thing. I want it, this to help veteran communities and veteran projects by creating what's called the VMAs. I think it's very doable, and I think there's been a lot of interest in it. So I do see it coming one day.
Wow, it's amazing what you've done. Now, what do you so and that's the same thing I look at for podcasting, right? Yes, it's nice to have. I've had viral videos because of stuff on my from my real estate stuff because I'm very political and stuff like that. But on my helping the brave or my interest, and it's not about that. It's about talking to other people and getting. You're able to connect with people that you've never been able to connect with either, unless you're in a room together. Now you can do it across the country. Like
Yep.
a few minutes ago, I was in England, right? So it's like and I was in Brazil and Australia, you name it. I talked to so many people all over the world, and I ran into somebody who's helping me work on. I just froze.
I can still hear you. Oh.
All right, well, my camera just died. Pause. I'm gonna pause for a second. All right, well, I'm back. All right. So yeah, the whole thing I was talking about is the most reason I'm doing this is connect with other people. And the reason I'm putting on the fire walk here in Modesto is because I connected with somebody on, that is a veteran who wants to do that for other veterans. And
Yep.
I don't care what it is that helps you. I'm gone again. I'm all right. Well, let's try it again. There we are. All right. So again, it's about connecting with other people doing this, and that's the most important thing. How do people find out about to find you and get involved with what you're doing?
So any of our websites are all tied together. If you want the radio station, you can go to gunroomradio.com, and from there, it's got links to all the radio stations. It's got links to our podcasting program, and it's got links to the Words from Warrior. And then our main nonprofit website is heroesvoiceMediaFoundation.org.
Hero Voice Media.
Yep. Heroes, plural, Heroes
Uh-huh.
Voice Media
Dot
Foundation.
com.
Yep.
Foundation.
.org.
And when I was going back to where you were saying that the place you went to get help is a for profit.
It is.
Well, there are non-profits where the people who run it make a lot of money. So you can't, not all non-profits mean it's not for making a profit. It just means how they're taxed differently. And
Right.
so, I mean, that's like my wife works for Kaiser. There's two part of Kaiser. There's a for-profit and a non-profit. And, and each one is there for a reason.
Yep. Yeah. I ended up meeting that the guy that runs that. His name is Rick Ye. And I seen him at an event called Hero Stock. They're another nonprofit that works with us, and they go around. They do festivals, camaraderie days. In the Army, we called them mandatory fun, and the veterans would come out, and it's all free for them. They provide a band. There's food. They will open it up to their family members, to first responders, and it's just a day to celebrate your local heroes. Well, how we kind of fit together was they started booking bands from the radio station, and it was a win-win because it gave those guys some gigs to put some money in their pocket. They the crowd got great music from amazing entertainers, and the music meant a lot more because they could relate to it. Most of the people there were veterans or new veterans or were part of the community somehow, and the songs are all from themselves.
Hmm.
A guy that you may look at having on your show, he's now signed by a label, but if you've never heard of Scotty Hastings, um, that is a guy to have on a show. He was shot 10 times in Afghanistan. He's got 2 Purple Hearts. And he started out when he got medically discharged for playing for the U.S. Paralympic team in archery. And when COVID hit, he didn't have anything left to fight the demons. So he picked up a guitar, started watching YouTube, and learned how to play. And he's now writing a song and doing a duet with Dolly Parton.
Wow.
And he's got an amazing voice. Like I said, he just got signed by a label about a month and a half, 2 months ago.
All right. So what do you need help with? I mean,
Um,
you're here helping veterans through your nonprofit, but you have to have a need through your nonprofit.
oh, absolutely. So the biggest thing that we need is listeners, people that are coming to the radio station and listening and enjoying. And the reason why we say that is to raise money. We do take on people that want to advertise. Um, so that's how we kind of raise our money uh, versus going out and trying to do fundraisers. We have people come on. Our advertising is compared to other places is very cheap, um, and we've got every media source covered. We've got a Roku channel, we've got a magazine, we've got the radio station, and so however you're trying to reach an audience, you're able to do it. But if we don't have listeners, then it's for nothing because the whole purpose is to get these veterans known, in the hopes that maybe one day somebody listening to it says, I know this VFW that's having an event. Let's have these veterans come down and do a speech or play music, whatever, and help support them because they're doing it for a living. And that's the whole purpose behind it is to help promote them and get them in the industry and get them known, as well as helping them a little bit financially too. Covering some recordings, covering some printing for the books, covering the cost for the Roku channel, that type of stuff.
So on the Roku channel, what do you have? Do you have podcasts on there too?
Yep. So there's two parts to it. It's all under the same name. It's called Military United Podcast Streams. All right, and there's 3 or 4 different people on there podcasting now. There's another part we call it MMTV, and it's nothing but military music videos. So all these guys that are on the radio station that have actually gone out and had professional videos made, we created a channel to bring back the old MTV version.
Actually, music?
Yeah, it's
No, it's a joke because
yeah,
MTV used to be music,
yeah,
and then they went away from it. Right?
yeah, actual
We
music.
remember because we're older. We remember that. Yeah.
Yep. No, I don't have no Tosh 2.0 or any of that stuff going. It's all songs, man.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about today before we go, or throw it out there?
No, man, just anybody listening to this, just if you're a veteran and you sing and you want your music on the radio, all you got to do is reach out to me. Send me a bio picture, a small bio, and send me the songs that you want on, and we'll play them. Every veteran songs get played.
How do they find you? What's the best way to get that to? I should say.
So. They can email me at donalddunn@gunroomradio.com.
And that's regular Donald DUNN.
Yep.
At gunradio.com. Is that what you said?
Gunroom Radio.
Gunroomradio.com.
And
Donald, thanks for coming on the show today. I appreciate having you here.
I appreciate you having me too, man. I had a good time.
Yeah. All right. And again, thanks for being here. And if you enjoy what we do here, just go over and hit that little subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. Make it a great day. Again, Donald, thank you so much for being here.